We're live. This is a special live show to discuss what is a major story in world boxing. Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Triple G Golovkin. Contract signed, confirmed. The two guys will square off September the 16th, 2017. The purpose of this discussion is some initial reaction to that and some early thoughts. This is going out as a live show, broadcast live on YouTube. After completion, it will be uploaded on the channel to watch as a normal video. I can see got some guys in the chat. We got Daniel, we got Leon, we got Ruben, we got Stuart, we got Terry tuning in from the Philippines. Tom tuning in, maybe refresh your computer, Tom. But yeah, thanks to everyone who's tuned in already. I'm going to give you some initial thoughts on this matchup from my perspective. So I'm probably going to talk for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then upon completion of that, we will go into the chat and we'll get some back and forth and some reaction from the guys in the chat. So if you are in the chat, if you are commenting live, I don't want you guys to feel that you're being ignored, but I want to get some of my own thoughts out first before I come to you, so it's a bit more streamlined. So bear with me for 10 minutes, and then we'll come to the guys in the chat. But first and foremost, let me start by saying what a fantastic year for boxing this is. 2017 appears to be the year that just keeps on giving. Big fight after big fight after big fight. We got more big fights coming up this very month in May. And towards the end of the year, this fight, Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin, really is one for the ages. I've got to say, this is a absolutely cracking fight. One of the most intriguing fights in boxing. And if I'm honest, a fight that I'd kind of given up hope that we were going to see. I really didn't believe that there was a genuine commitment and desire to make this fight. And the fact that it's going ahead, the fact that it's going to be made is exceptional. I believe the fight is at 160. I don't believe there's any catch weights here. Obviously, Canelo is a guy very, very famed and associated with fighting catch weights. And I believe that this is 160. And, if we're considering Canelo as a middleweight now, I think there's no argument that this is the top two middleweights in the sport. So with that in mind, it's a matchup I applaud. I also think rather than just being, we get matchups sometimes which are the number one and number two in the division. And we always applaud those matchups because it's always good to see the best taking the best. But in this particular fight, it's not only the best facing the best, it's a combination of styles, a combination of fighters that has the potential to create a truly memorable fight and a truly memorable occasion. So I can't wait for this one. I always talk about momentum in boxing. I believe momentum is one of the most key things in boxing. You see a young prospect going 20-0 and they don't know how to lose. They're unbeaten. They keep racking up the wins. Then they take a loss, and often you'll see that prospect take 3 or 4 losses back to back. If you look at people's records, if you look at guys who have become opponents, become gatekeepers, become journeymen, very often those guys put together a good streak of wins, win after win after win, and then they take a loss, and then you see their career transition. And clearly these two guys are well above that. Clearly these are two top level boxers, pound for pound level boxers, you could argue. But I do believe at this point the momentum is with Saul Canelo Alvarez. I really do. Canelo is coming off a very, very big win at the weekend. Now, I appreciate Chavez Jr. does not represent the elite of the sport. I appreciate that Chavez Jr. is not a pound-for-pound fighter. He certainly doesn't represent or present the test that Gennady Golovkin represents. But the manner and the fashion with which Canelo took care of business and the manner and the fashion with which he transitioned to, to that higher weight was very, very impressive. I thought it was a real good performance from Canelo. And at 26 years old, I think he has substantially improved from a boxing pedigree in the last few years. You know, Canelo's a young guy. He was only born in 1990. Canelo's a child of the 90s. And already he's had 51 fights. I mean, that's incredible. And if we go down his resume, Chavez Jr., Liam Smith, Amir Khan, Miguel Cotto, James Kirkland, Erislandy Lara, Angulo, Floyd, Austin Trout, Josecito Lopez, Shane Mosley, Kermit Citron, Alfonso Gomez, Ryan Rhodes, Matthew Hatton. You know, I know people take the mick out of some of his early opponents, and I know people say Canelo's had a few gift decisions over the years. But realistically, that is not a bad list of names for a guy who's 26 years old. It really isn't. So, you know, I give Canelo some real props, and I think is you know, he's got a huge amount of momentum. I think he's improving as a fighter. I think he's looking better and better than ever before, and I actually think he's going to improve for the transition to a higher weight class. I think that he's going to be less drained going into the fight. He may have more energy. He may punch harder, etc. Gennady Golovkin, on the other hand, he's a guy who's unbeaten, 37-0. But now he's 35 years old. And there was a time a year or two ago, maybe a year, 18 months ago, that Gennady Golovkin was viewed as this unshakable wrecking ball within the middleweight division. But his last two fights have called that into question, particularly his last fight against Daniel Jacobs. Now, Kell Brook was his second last fight. And as you guys know, Kell Brook stepped up to from 147 to 160. And a lot of people felt Kell Brook showed some weaknesses in Golovkin's game. A lot of people were very surprised by the punches that Kell Brook was able to land on Golovkin in that fight. But Daniel Jacobs, you know, most people tipped Golovkin by early and devastating KO in that fight. I think I was one of them. I'm pretty sure I picked Gennady Golovkin to win that fight by devastating knockout. And Daniel Jacobs really gave him all he could handle. I think, in hindsight, I actually scored that fight in Daniel Jacobs' favour, believe it or not. You know, I thought it was a really tight fight. Admittedly, a fight that could have gone either way. Admittedly, a fight that, you know, was really up in the air. But I really felt Jacobs may have just done enough to sneak it there. And I think the nature of that fight has really made people, question whether Gennady Golovkin, at the age of 35, is starting to look more vulnerable. Is he more open to, to a mover? Is he more open to a jabber? Is he more open to someone with a bit more size than him, etc.? So it's a real interesting fight, and momentum plays a big part. For me, Golovkin, there would be an argument to say that two of his worst performances have come in his last two fights, whereas Canelo Alvarez, for me, has been looking better and better and better. So I think, it's getting to the point now where this is the right time for this matchup. I view it as a real 50-50 fight. If I had to choose a favourite, I'm not saying this is my prediction to win the fight. I'm saying if I had to choose who the bookmakers will have a favourite, I imagine Gennady Golovkin would be viewed as a slight favourite, because I guess Golovkin's kind of got that air of invincibility about him, hasn't he? Even though Golovkin didn't look great against Daniel Jacobs, there's so many highlight reel knockouts attached to Gennady Golovkin's name, and there's so much sort of fear and a sort of reputation of being an avoided man attached to his name. Whereas Canelo, still in his biggest fight against Floyd Mayweather, people remember him losing 12-0 to a welterweight in Floyd Mayweather. And there's also the suggestion, that Austin Trout beat him, that maybe Erislandy Lara beat him. So I think there's kind of, I think Gennady Golovkin will be a favourite. But I do see this as a real 50-50 fight. And I think it's got the potential to be an explosive fight. For me, both of these guys are at their very best when they're on the front foot. I don't think Canelo is much of a mover. I don't think Canelo is much of a mover on his back foot in terms of lateral movement. I think Canelo's at his best when he's able to come forward, bring some pressure, and throw power punches. Unload punches to the body, that hook to the body, that uppercut up the middle. I think Canelo is, a real handful. And I believe, despite the fact Canelo's campaigned at a lighter weight class historically, I believe Canelo may well be the bigger man in there. I really do. Canelo is famous for rehydrating to the cruiserweight division, whereas Golovkin I've always viewed as a small to medium-sized middleweight, certainly not a super middleweight, let's put it that way. As for Triple G, I think I would argue he has a slight edge in power. He's certainly got an edge in amateur pedigree. I think whilst Canelo's jab has improved for me, I think Triple G still has an advantage in jab. And I would expect Triple G to try and fight this fight early behind the jab. And I think if Triple G can get that jab established and, make Canelo try and move around the ring, maybe put Canelo on his back foot, I think if he's able to do that, he has a real advantage in this fight, Triple G. If it turns into a war, then it's a great fight because both of these guys have given the indication that they've got very, very good chins. To my knowledge, I'm unaware of either guy being dropped into professional ranks. I don't really... in recent history, maybe Canelo got hurt once or twice on the way up. I can't say I've followed Canelo from his early fights, but, in Canelo's recent 10 fights, for example, I can't particularly remember Canelo looking hurt or Canelo looking wobbled at any occasion. So I think these are two guys with big punch resistance. I know a lot of people will say Canelo's going to get stopped, but let's face it, if Daniel Jacobs could go the distance with Gennady Golovkin, then Saul Canelo Alvarez very possibly could go the distance as well. I appreciate Jacobs may be a better mover than Alvarez. He may be a bigger man than Alvarez. So stylistically, you could say it's a very, very different fight. But Daniel Jacobs is a guy who was dropped by Sergio Mora. Daniel Jacobs is a guy who was iced by Dimitri Pirog, and he went the distance with Golovkin. So a guy like Canelo Alvarez, who, is a guy who, has shown very good punch resistance in the past and doesn't appear to have been rocked before. This could well be a 12-round fight. This could well be a fight where both guys are, trading hellacious punches from mid-range to inside. They're both guys who hook to the body. They're both guys who throw uppercuts. This could be a fight for the ages. It really could. For me, it's a highly, highly exciting matchup between two really world-class operators. And this may surprise a few people, but I think from a resume perspective alone, I actually think Canelo Alvarez has the stronger resume. A lot of the advantages technically you could say are with Triple G. Triple G's got the amateur experience. Triple G's got the longevity at middleweight. Triple G's got the jab. Triple G's probably got the movement. Maybe Triple G's got the power. I'd probably give Triple G a slight edge in power. But Canelo, he's got an edge in freshness. He's got an edge in momentum. He may have an edge in size and strength. And I think that's a key. It will be interesting. I imagine Canelo is going to want to fight a fight like he fought against Chavez Jr., where he is able to try and throw punches in bunches, put power punches together, maybe counter punch, try and time the older man and try and give him work that way. Whereas Triple G, I suspect, will be the more disciplined operator. I think he will look to his boxing to try and win the fight. I suspect he will jab and move. But I'm sure there's going to be occasions in this fight where war breaks out in the center of the ring. And, some of the punches Canelo was landing the other day, some of the combinations of power punches, some of the hooks and uppercuts were, some of the top punches you'll see in boxing as far as I'm concerned. So as you guys can probably tell, I'm massively, massively, massively hyped for this fight. And I think it's superb news for our sport of boxing that this event has been confirmed and that the fight has been made. So let me know your thoughts on this, guys. As I said at the start of this, I wanted to get some thoughts off my chest before we go to the chat. But I will do now, so we can bring in some people from the chat who want their comments to be read out. If you do want your comments to be read out, put hashtag BG in the comments so I know you want it read out. Otherwise, I'll presume you don't. up to about 75 people watching it live now. So if you're one of those 75, do me a favor and click the thumbs up button. And if you're not a subscriber already, do take the time to subscribe so you can check out all of my other stuff. But yeah, thanks for everyone who's joined in the chat. I can see we've got a good few people. And as I say, just put hashtag BG next to your comment if you want me to read it out. Charlie's put, do you think Canelo's uppercut could be a problem for Golovkin? Absolutely. You know, Golovkin's shown an excellent chin in his career to date. But yeah, Canelo, for me, Canelo is the hardest fight of Golovkin's career. I genuinely believe that. And I believe Canelo may well be the hardest puncher that Golovkin's ever faced. You know, if I've got that wrong, if I'm missing someone glaringly obvious, put it in the comments section below. But I think Canelo's a bigger puncher than Danny Jacobs and David Lemieux, even though, admittedly, those guys are probably more established middleweights than Canelo is at this point. Zayat says, nice haircut, BG. Appreciate that, Zayat. Thank you very much, mate. Nice of you to notice. Dacrian says, Danny Jacobs beats everyone on Canelo's resume. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I think that Danny Jacobs beats Floyd Mayweather, for example. You know, or you know, Danny Jacobs, Erislandy Lara. You know, that's by no means a certainty for me. You know, Daniel Jacobs did very, very well against Golovkin, but he's still the same fighter who was getting dropped by Sergio Mora. You know, literally. DJ Slick says, BG, good to see you streaming again. Is Triple G's legacy tainted if he loses to Canelo, whereas Canelo can come again, is still young? DJ Slicks, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, it is tainted. I think one of the criticisms that I've had of Gennady Golovkin, and to be fair to him, he's gone some way to ironing this out in recent fights, but up till relatively recently, Triple G hadn't fought, you know, the best of his division. And that's not necessarily his fault. Triple G's been avoided, he's been ducked, he's been swerved, however you want to phrase it. But if you look at the middleweight champs that there's been since Triple G was in the division, did he fight Sergio Martinez? No. Did he fight Miguel Cotto? No. Has he fought Billy Joe Saunders? No. And I'm sure there's more names than that I've missed out as well. But you know, the truth is Triple G hasn't had the big fights yet. And as I say, that's completely not his fault. I don't hold Triple G accountable for that. But until you've had the big fights, it's hard to class you. You can say he's the #1 middleweight, but it's hard to class you as the very, very top of the sport. Now, recently, he's gone some way to disprove that. Daniel Jacobs was the 2nd or 3rd best middleweight in the world when he took him on. David Lemieux was probably a top 5 middleweight, give or take. You know, but there's also been some weak fights in there. There's Kell Brook, who was a welterweight. Dominic Wade, Willie Monroe Jr. You know, these weren't the sort of top guys available. And I think if Golovkin were to lose at this stage, it would kind of look like, you know, he's a guy who has looked very, very good against the Martin Murrays and David Lemieux of this world, but maybe has failed to put in a elite world-class performance against fellow pound-for-pound level operators. So that would be, I do think his legacy would be devastated to a large extent if he loses to Canelo, especially seeing as it would come after the Daniel Jacobs fight, where for me he looked beatable. As for Canelo, can he come again? Absolutely. Look how he's come back ever stronger after his loss to Floyd Mayweather. Canelo's a superstar. Canelo, as I say, has a superior resume in many ways to Triple G already. And obviously Canelo's only 26. So a loss here, there's still huge fights for him to come back to. Whereas a big loss for Triple G, you know, him coming back at 36 and 37, you kind of wonder if a loss at this stage and it's maybe downhill and in the autumn of his career. So let's see. Let's see. James says, BG, do you think globally this is a bigger fight than Joshua versus Klitschko? No, I do not. I really don't. You know, I think Canelo Chavez Jr. Was a big fight amongst the Mexican community, but I'm kind of unaware of it being a global phenomenon. You know, it was a fight that I think largely flew under the radar against the British, amongst the British boxing population. If I'm completely frank, be interesting to see when the pay-per-view figures come out, because I understand, it'll probably be less. It was probably sell less pay-per-views than Klitschko Joshua, but the pay-per-views there are much more expensive. But no, I think the heavyweights have a unique draw. I think people like watching people who are freak physiques and freak sizes, and no, I think Joshua Klitschko is a bigger draw globally. But I would say that this is second to it. I would say that the fact that Canelo doesn't speak a huge amount of English, and the fact that Gennady Golovkin is, he's become a bigger name in the last year or so from the Kell Brook fight and the Jacobs fight, but he's largely been a name supported by the hardcore boxing population rather than the casuals. Whereas I think Klitschko had so long as the world heavyweight champion, Joshua is such a darling of the casuals that I think that probably took on a whole new dynamic, that fight. Mean Machine says, BG, do you think a win for Triple G will have him on the level of the greats of middleweight? I've never claimed to be like a boxing historian. And my knowledge of historical boxers is limited. So, I could rattle off some of the famous names. I could say Marvin Hagler, I could say Bernard Hopkins, etc. But could I know there's been other huge names at middleweight, but could I say, the truth is I don't really know. I wasn't alive during those eras. I have obviously seen some of the fights, and it's kind of hard to compare, really. I don't have the historical knowledge to comment on that with any conviction or authority. What I would say is, for me, the lack of pound-for-pound level opposition on Golovkin's resume has been a concern in terms of his legacy. And Danny Jacobs was the best opponent of his career as far as I'm concerned, and ran him very, very, very close. So, we'll have to see. Canelo is a step up from Danny Jacobs, in my opinion. This is the new best opponent of his career. So I think it will have a big impact on his legacy. I would say that I think I've seen better fighters than Triple G. Triple G is a very, very, very good fighter. But in terms of, if we're talking the best I've ever seen, I know Pete Roy Jones swapped weights, but give me a Pete Roy Jones over a Triple G, any day of the week. Let's have a look. Don't want to miss anyone out in the chat here because we're slightly quieter tonight, so hopefully I can get to everyone in the chat. I've managed to get behind on the chat again. Zayat says, BG, can Canelo take the punishment Triple G is going to dish out? I've got no reason to suspect he can't. The one thing about Canelo is, as hard as he is and as tough as he is, he's not a mover. So I don't think he'll be as elusive and as hard to hit as Danny Jacobs was. So even though he may have a better chin than Danny Jacobs, he may end up taking more punishment and therefore getting stopped. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. This is the biggest punch that Canelo's gone in with, so it's an unknown. But I've not seen any reason to question Canelo's punch resistance at this stage. Having said that, to be stopped by Triple G, you could still have good punch resistance. Nick has put, BG, any mileage in your view to the theory that Triple G deliberately looked crap in his last fights to get De La Hoya to the table? I think it's plausible. I don't, Nick. No, I never tend to believe commentary like that. I think it's a happy coincidence, don't get me wrong. But, Triple G almost lost that last fight. That was far too close to the mark to have been a plan, let's put it that way. Team Groves, evening sir, put thoughts on Golovkin being able to outbox him with his height, reach, advantage and boxing pedigree. Absolutely. I think that's Golovkin's advantage in the fight. I think he's got advantage in footwork and advantage in jab. So I think he's got to do that. I expect him to fight a similar fight to how he fought against Lemieux. Adams put, can Golovkin win by decision, taking into consideration some of Canelo's past scorecards? Very, very good question. And a particularly relevant question if Golovkin's looking to move and jab and Canelo is looking to throw haymakers, because those judges give any excuse, they're going to score that round to Canelo. I think we can all agree on that. Can Golovkin win by decision? Yes. But yeah, I don't think he can win 7-5 on decision. I think he's got to come out and pretty much school him if he wants to win by decision. He's got to really put a beating on him, maybe drop him, that sort of thing. If this fight goes to the scorecards and I've got Golovkin 1 or 2 points up, I will not be confident of a Golovkin victory. I scored every round of Floyd Canelo to Floyd, and one of the judges had it a draw, which tells you your own story, guys. I can see the judges being bought out year over so that Canelo will be the new cash cow. Charlie says, do you think Canelo would have the fight with GGG? Do you think Canelo would have taken the fight if GGG didn't fight Jacobs and Brook? Both exploited weaknesses in Triple G, and up until then, he hadn't had troubles or shown any flaws. No, I suspect boxing's all about timing. We see Eddie Hearn get his timing time and time again. Look how Eddie Hearn timed Bellew versus Hay. Look at how Eddie Hearn timed Joshua versus Klitschko. This is another case of that. Triple G, his market name hasn't started to decline yet. But at 35, they know the clock's ticking. He's taking more punishment. He's maybe starting to slow. A fighter who's been known as a chinny fighter has just gone the distance and at least taken multiple rounds off him. I think they were inclined to take this fight, given the change in fortunes Triple G has had of late, and given the suggestion that he may be getting old. Let's have a look. M1 Life, mate, has Canelo been dropped before? Not to my knowledge, M1 Life, no. David Smith has put Carlos Mons on. I presume he's referring to, a big classic middleweights. I can see Iris Tom's in the house. Iris, if you want to jump on, mate, just drop me a quick email and I'll reply to it with a link. But no worries if you don't. I know you're a busy man. Moto Edits. If Canelo beat Triple G, would you have him as your pound for pound number one? Wow, good question. Do I have him as my pound for pound number one? Very possibly. I'd need to sit down as a pen and paper because the Ward Kovalev fight is also a top pound for pound fight. So, if Ward won again in that fight, it would be a toss-up probably between the two of them. You could also throw Manny Pacquiao into the mix, dependent if you still consider him an active fighter, but he's certainly in that conversation. Avisex says, BG, do you think Martinez would have beaten Triple G? No, I don't. I'd pick Triple G in that fight. M1 Life, do you favour Canelo if the fight goes into the championship rounds? Well, I favour Canelo if it's a tight fight and it goes to the scorecards, yes. I do. So, yeah, if Canelo is if it goes to points, then I do well expect that Canelo could well win the fight in a close fight, especially because I think Triple G will come out and box and move and jab, whereas I think Canelo will be throwing hooks and uppercuts and trying to catch the judge's eye. DJ Slicks, BG, do you expect this to be a pay-per-view on Sky? I don't think either man is a big pay-per-view draw in England. And also, you've got to factor in the time difference. How many of us are going to be paying pay-per-view for something 4 in the morning? I'd rather just go to sleep and wake up and watch it the next day. Yeah, I don't suspect it is a pay-per-view fight in the UK. I certainly hope it isn't because, I'm someone who needs his sleep. If I'm very happy to pay the pay-per-view, but not for a fight at 4 a.m. in the morning. Good news, guys. Irish Tom is going to join us, so I'll bring him on in a second. I've just sent him the link, and let me go. Duncan's, but BG, do you think Canelo will pull out as the fight gets closer, then look for a later date to keep Triple G out of the ring for longer? No, I've got no reason to suspect that. Obviously, every passing day, Triple G is getting closer and closer into his late 30s, so it is plausible. But, I think Canelo's got a lot of stick over being a duck, and maybe his team have displayed that kind of behaviour. But Canelo himself does seem to want to fight. Barry says, BG, can Canelo stop Triple G? It's not impossible. Triple G, to my knowledge, has never been in with a puncher like Canelo. You could say the same in reverse. But yeah, it's BG. But Triple G, calling him BG, Triple G is certainly open to certain punches, and he's slowing down and he's getting hit slightly more, it appears, in his recent fights. So a guy like Canelo, who's going to come into the ring at 180, who throws hooks and uppercuts like that, he may be able to hurt. He may be able to hurt Triple G in a way that Triple G's previous opponents have not been able to. Good news, guys. I can see that Iris Tom has joined the party. Iris, give us a sound check, mate. Sorry, Tom. Go again, mate. Okay, we're not having much luck here.
Hello.
Hello, Tom. How you doing?
Not too bad. How's it going?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. Big fight, right?
I'm only after turning down the volume when I was putting this one on, so I can't hear what was just said. What were you saying?
Oh, huge fight. Canelo versus Triple G.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just me, but the weekend was such a dud. I've yet to see it all. That I feel very. I don't feel up for Canelo GGG like I thought I would. It's weird. I don't know if anybody else is feeling that, or is it just me?
Do you know what? I actually think it saved the weekend, because I'm sure we'll talk about it in the podcast, but by the time I'd sat through the Parker fight and this Canelo fight, I was really thinking about giving up boxing and taking up tiddlywinks. And then when that came out at the end, I thought, like, oh, wow, it's something to finally be excited for. Do you know what I mean? I mean, as I was saying earlier, it's not just the two best guys, but I think it's going to be a great fight in terms of the styles. I think it's going to be a war.
Well, yeah, these big fights are rarely wars. Like the Joshua Klitschko was the first big fight in a long time I can think there was a war that was between two top guys. Maybe we've had Floyd and Maidana, but that's hardly a top guy at the time. So, rarely do we get them to turn that way. I just feel like I was kind of very disappointed in that fight. Like, I think it's just a total mismatch in the end. I was hoping that Chavez would have something left, but obviously he had nothing left. Saturday I rewatched the Andy Lee versus Chavez fight, and Chavez just marched through Andy Lee and took everything he had. That Chavez was a pretty good fighter. He had something, but it's totally gone now.
It's
certainly at that weight, and probably at any weight, because the only he was so big for that weight. That was his real advantage, because he didn't have the skills. Tyson Fury fans, or people who like Tyson, like seeing how shit he looked after losing all that weight. I think if Tyson comes back in April, he's going to have to make Joshua a favorite, and I think it'll take Fury. I think a year is not enough time to lose that weight. I think he'd take at least 18 months to lose that, and then he might never be the same again. So it's a kind of disappointing for Fury fans when you look at a fight like that. Yeah,
I do agree generally on Tyson Fury. I think that the issue is more pronounced when you're cutting to make weight, because I think Chavez was never like an electric technician, was he? I mean, Chavez was just a guy who was huge and powerful at the weight, and I think once he lost that advantage, he fundamentally probably doesn't have the class to be dominating guys at 168 or 175, which is what his frame dictates he should be fighting at, I guess.
Yeah, but like that Chavez, if he had fought at 164 and a half or whatever that was, fought at 164, that would have been a good fight. Not to say he would have taken a lot of rounds. Maybe he would have taken 1 or 2 rounds, but he could have stopped Canelo, that Chavez. And you see, he deteriorated so much that he can't even make, I think when he fought Martinez, he made 158, put into context.
Wow.
That's only 3 or 4 years ago, and that's 6 pounds, 6.5 pounds lighter, and now he's fucking dead at that weight. And to me, a lot of that is just bad living.
Yeah.
Can Fury dance? You know, I think Fury said he was 18.5 stone for Vlad, I think.
Yes, that's
I think
right.
at the weigh-in, they said it was a stone heavier. They fiddled with the scales to piss him off, or stone lighter. So if he's 18.5, you know, if he gets to 18.5 again, you know, I don't know. Will he have legs? He wasn't particularly slim like he was against Martin Rogan. But anyway, yeah, no, I have yet to finish it all. So disappointing fight. I'm kind of deflated at the moment after that fight the weekend. So it'll take me a while to get revved up. But I usually get more hype for GGG fights more than any other.
I thought you were going to be absolutely buzzing for this one.
I know. I can't explain it, Gossip. I didn't. You know me. I watch GGG fights are the ones I get up most for.
Let me give you the early betting odds, Tom. Gennady Golovkin is a favourite. 4-6 is available with Ladbrokes and Coral, but most bookies have him at 4-7 generally. As for Canelo Alvarez, multiple bookmakers going 6-4 on Canelo Alvarez. In terms of an early method of victory market, the favourite is Golovkin by KO at 7-5. Alvarez by points 2-1. Golovkin by points 3-1, and Alvarez by KO 10-1.
Sorry, what's Alvarez by points is 2-1?
Yes, 2-1.
Yeah, like I think those odds, the actual 4-6, 4-7, 6-4, I think those odds are about right. I think it's a 60-40 fight straight down the middle. I don't know what 60-40 straight down the middle means. That makes no sense. I think it's 60-40 each, you know, either side. But I think the betting one is, I'm surprised, Chavez or Canelo 2-1 on points. I suppose that makes sense. You're not going to stop GGG, but I think that's the bet. If there is a bet, I think it's a close fight. I'm going to have to watch. Canelo has certainly come in a lot. I think GGG has slipped. But Canelo's flat-footed, so he's not going to have the same abilities that Jacobs had.
Yeah,
and you know, he doesn't have the height and the reach, and he doesn't have the legs. He probably
this fight because they perceive that Triple G has slipped from his fights against Brook and Jacobs.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, and also, you know, if Canelo was moving up, he would have to take him. You know what I mean? So, I think they knew they had to move up, but so they can't put it off too long. And I think they've seen a slip now, and I think they'll just go for it. You know, this will do a lot of pay-per-view buys, I'd say. Weirdly, like I can't believe it. I'm completely not psyched for it. You know, I'm probably less pumped for this than I am for Kell Brook versus Errol Spence, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just at the moment, that's just my feeling.
Yeah, still a long way. But in terms of the actual fight itself, do you think that we can expect to see a sort of David Lemieux Triple G? Do you think he's going to be very disciplined, fighting behind the jab, using his feet, that sort of thing?
Yeah, like to be honest with you, he's done that when he thinks he's stepping up to the high level. That's what he's done. You know, Lemieux, Jacobs, and I think with Canelo will be the same. And like the thing is, he's got a reach advantage. I'd say he must have quite a reach advantage because Canelo is a fucking dwarf. I'm just looking here now. Canelo's reach is 70.5. Okay, and Golovkin's reach is 70. So they're the same reach. That's interesting. Those stats are probably harsh.
Yeah, Golovkin looked the substantially taller man out of the two of them. He looked like, you know, good 3 inches taller, I'd say, maybe a bit more even. I don't know. Yeah.
The other thing is, will Canelo be able to cut down to 160 after, you know, will he be able to get those 4 more pounds off? That's the big question.
You know what? As crazy as that sounds, I did actually think that when I saw the weigh-in the other day, because he looked spot on at 164.5. You know, it didn't. I'm sure he can get down because he was cutting down a lot less even in his last fight. But yeah, I mean, for me, he looked really strong, really energized. You know, he fought a good fight. I don't actually think the cut will improve his performance. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, like his face though. You look at the Liam Smith weigh-in, and his face was fucked, and he was he actually had kind of beefy cheeks on him this time. So, you know, I think, yeah, I was being sarcastic. I don't think there's any problem there. You know, if you're making 10 pounds lighter 6 months before a fight, you know, 9 months before a fight,
definitely,
you know, you'd have no problems. Yeah.
Well, I know it's very, very, very early stages, Tom, and obviously there'll be twists and turbulations in the way. But do you have an early indication on who you think will win the fight?
I'm going to go Canelo.
Okay.
I think Canelo will do it, and I think that if it's 7-5 on the scorecards, you'll definitely get it. You know,
yeah,
he's the A side. So if I was, and I don't know if Golovkin will be able to knock him out. You know, thing is, you know, Canelo's got fast combinations, and if Golovkin goes for the kill, you know, if Golovkin is too aggressive, you know, Canelo can put together flashy combos and steal rounds. So, like, you know, it's a pity this fight, I think, it's come too late for Prime GGG. I think Prime GGG is gone. Canelo, if he does it and he takes it, fair play to him. I think it's a close one. I don't see GGG stopping him. He might drop him, but on the way. But it's hard to go against Canelo in Vegas.
It is. It certainly is. It certainly is. Iris, I'm not planning to be on much longer, mate. But do you have anything else to throw in?
No, not really. I'm not planning to be too long myself. Yeah, sure. I'll give it a run, and I'll see you Wednesday night.
I'll let you drop off, Iris, and we'll have you back for the podcast Wednesday night. But cheers for that, mate.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks, Iris. Cheers, mate. Thanks to Iris Tom there for providing a little cameo. About 130 of you watching live. So if you are watching live, smash the thumbs up button. Do me a favor and press subscribe if you're new. I can see Jet's in the chat. Hello, Jet. Hope you're doing well, mate. Yeah. So, guys, I'll ask one more question because I'm interested in what public perception is. Give me your predictions for this fight. Give me who wins the fight and how, and I'll read them out as they come through, and then we'll wrap it up. But I'm interested to see who the crowd is picking here. So let's see. Irish Tomler's gone Canelo. So let's see who everyone in the chat is picking and what the consensus is. Amir Khan's chin, Golovkin, majority decision. Anonymous, Canelo on 0.75. Ben, GGG UD. Team Groves, GGG points. Jason Taylor, Canelo points. Mark, Triple G UD. 42 Savage, Canelo on points. For Tony, Golovkin majority decision. Mark has put GGG points. Moto Edits, Golovkin stoppage. White Rhino fanboy, Canelo points. Jordan, Canelo. Jet, hope you're good. Thanks, Jet, mate. Cheers. I'll catch you soon. John Murphy has put Canelo majority decision. Brandon. Oh, I've lost it. Let's go back to Brandon. Brandon, Canelo points. Zayat, GGG, late stoppage. M-Star, GGG by his power jab. Peter Green has put Thomas picked Canelo, so it has to be Triple G. Esper's put Triple G never wins a decision against Canelo. Chris Marinov, Triple G KO. 20, Canelo points. Perry, Canelo points. M-Star, Canelo. Charlie Cutting, Canelo split decision. PJB, Triple G wins. DJ Slicks, absolutely one of the best years in recent history. Loving it, mate. Fight after fight after fight. Connor Boyd, Golovkin should win, but something tells me Canelo steals it. James, Canelo UD. Sport, Golovkin KO late. Jets picking a draw. Just missed out what Adam was saying there. Adam, Canelo decision. Steve, Canelo points UD. Esper has put Golovkin will have to finish. PJB, Triple G round 6 to 9. 42 Savage, Canelo points. DLB and Ali, Canelo KO. Reese has put Canelo points robbery. John IC, Canelo decision or late KO. Craig, Canelo TKO 8. Sheldon, Canelo points. Esper, GGG, TKO 6. Craig, Canelo will put it on him. Muhammad Ali is joining from Kazakhstan. Evening. Zayat says it seems 50-50. It does. Very tight fight. AS, Canelo points. White Rhino fanboy, GGG robbed on points. It's Canelo on points, but GGG unofficial win and robbed. 42 Savage, what's my opinion? I'll come to that in just 1 second. Martin C, Canelo KO. So yeah, there we go. It seems really, really split. Do you know what? I'm very, very on the fence with this fight. Of course, I'll do a prediction video and we'll discuss on the lead up to the fight. And I reserve the right to change my opinion and go back and forth here. I probably will do because, you know, this is a fight I'm really struggling with. I'm a huge believer in momentum in boxing. And I think I'm inclined to go with Canelo, actually. I think I'm inclined to go Canelo points. I just think Canelo is going to be a hard man to beat in Vegas. I believe he's a legit tough guy. Jared says evening. Golovkin late stoppage. Evening, Jared. And I think Triple G is going to be trying to jab and move. But whilst I think Triple G is very, very good behind the jab, I don't think he's the sort of slippery, slick, back foot fighter that Canelo has struggled with in the past. And I think as Triple G is jabbing, even though that will be effective, Canelo will be landing with hooks to the body, with big uppercuts, with that sort of thing. And I think the judges are just going to favour him in Vegas, I'm afraid. And in a very, very tight fight, at the minute, I'd be inclined to go Canelo by a whisker. But as I say, I need to rewatch more footage and very, very likely that I'll change my mind on the run-up. But there you go, guys. So just really wanted to get this one out there to, you know, get some coverage of this great fight on the channel. 2017 is a superb year for boxing. Looks like a real vintage year. So good. And yeah, thanks very much to everyone who's joining the chat. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. As I say, this will now go up as an upload to the channel. So if you joined towards the end or halfway through, you can rewatch it. And my thoughts on, you know, some of the key questions were at the start of this. If you have been watching live, please hit the thumbs up button to help get this video more visibility. And if you're new, do press subscribe so you can check out all of my other videos. Make sure you're subbed. But yeah, many thanks indeed for tuning in, guys. This will probably be my last video till the podcast on Wednesday. Got quite a busy day tomorrow, so unlikely I'll be on tomorrow, but we'll be back 8:30 on Wednesday with the podcast. Thanks everyone for joining, and yeah, we'll speak to you all soon. Cheers.